In this little video, we're going to discuss naming chemical compounds that have ionic bonds. And briefly, just looking at the periodic table again, we need to review that metals are typically found on the right-hand side, the left-hand side of the table and underneath, and the non-metals are found in this very small section here on the left-hand side of the table. And these are some rules to follow when naming ionic bonds. So it typically says an ionic bond forms between a metal and a non-metal. Metals tend to lose electrons to form positive ions, and non-metals tend to gain electrons to form negative ions. And it is the attraction of positive to negative that creates the bond. So some rules to follow is we name the metal first, and in some cases the metals like iron, Fe, or some of the other ones found in the middle of the periodic table can have multiple combining capacities. So it's important when you're naming your compound to determine which form of the metal is in your compound. And we use that by indicating it with Roman numerals. For example, iron can be iron 2, which is written as iron 2, or iron 3, which is written as iron 3. The second thing to do is name the non-metals. As with covalent compounds, the ending of the non-metal is typically changed to an IDE, but it's also important to note that sometimes the negative ion or the positive ion may be a polyatomic ion, and the list of names for those are given on that polyatomic ion sheet you'd seen earlier in this registration assignment. I've got some practice questions we're going to go through here now. So, for the first one, we have MgO. That's supposed to be a G. And I'm just going to change my color when we're writing the answers here. So Mg is magnesium, and O is oxygen, so it's oxide. And number 5 here over on the left-hand side is barium, and the S is sulfur, so it's barium sulfide. Now this next question here, number 2, is actually SO4. And if you remember from our periodic table, SO4 is a polyatomic ion which has a 2- charge. So in order for copper to form with one sulfate ion, it would have to be copper 2. So we're going to put a 2+ up there, and we write this as copper 2 sulfate. Next example we have here is NaCH3COOH, and CH3COO is actually on your polyatomic ion sheet as well, and its name is acetate. And then we name the metal at first, which is sodium, which is with an S, not an N. Sorry, I'm just going to correct that little mistake. So sodium. The last one here, again, we have sulfate, and this time we have 2 coppers. So I will know it's got a +1 charge, so it's copper 1 sulfate. Number 6, again, it's sodium, and the PO4 is phosphate. Okay, next one, number 7, is aluminum, and it's sulfide. And the last one here we have sodium, and OH is a hydroxide ion, so it's hydroxide. Now something you may have noticed is that some of these elements, and just highlight the ones that are different here. Like there's 3 of sodiums there's 2 aluminums and 2 sulfurs here, and that's the only ones in this case. For naming ionic compounds, we do not use prefixes, so this isn't trisodium phosphate or dialuminum trisulfide. We just name them without the prefixes, and it's important to emphasize that we never use prefixes when naming ionic compounds.